As long as you are convinced you have never done anything, you can never do anything. Malcolm X. Welcome to the We Don't Believe You podcast series. Our mission is to neutralize and dispel the false narratives, negative images, and disparaging stereotypes that have been perpetuated about Black people through various media outlets for centuries. Each week, we will highlight stories of Black excellence, greatness, and success of the past, present, and future, all of which share one common trait. They chose not to believe the negative images or stereotypes that said they couldn't succeed, but instead achieved massive success in spite of them. And now, here's your host, Brian McCoy.
Peace, and welcome to another episode of the We Don't Believe You podcast series, where our mission is to reverse and to dispel the false negative narratives and false stereotypes that have been perpetuated about Black people in this country for centuries. How we do this is by highlighting positive Black images of individuals who chose not to believe those false narratives, but instead chose to succeed in spite of them. And our next guest embodies this principle. Her journey to entrepreneurial success began and was fueled by a simple thought: I can do this. Over the last 20 years, the combination of her I can do this mentality and her faith, desire, drive, determination, and ambition, she turned I can do this into look what I did. After obtaining her LPN certificate from the BOCES Tech Center in New York, her passion for the healthcare industry grew. As her passion grew, so did her desire and ambition. So she went back to school and earned a bachelor's degree from Barry University in Florida. In 1995, her professional journey began when she started working as a nurse at a large visiting nurse service in New York. And after 20 years of working as a nurse, her I can do mentality kicked back in, relying totally on the knowledge, wisdom, and skills she acquired, her belief in herself and her faith. She trusted the universe and went into business for herself. She's a mother, a community advocate, a nurse, an entrepreneur, a leader, and a true inspiration. She's the founder and CEO of the wildly successful Tailored Care Healthcare Staffing Agency, which now has over 200 employees. Please welcome Miss Nichelle Brown-Taylor.
Thank you. I was expecting to hear some applause after that wonderful introduction. I'm impressed myself.
Yeah, you like, look what I did.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, no,
Coming
it's
out of your mouth.
But yeah, no, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time and your energy. So, and first and foremost, out of the gate, I just wanted to tell you how extremely proud I am of you. Proud to know you, proud to know that you exist.
Thank you. That means a
So
lot.
naturally, we all want to know how to succeed as an entrepreneur, especially when, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 20% of all small businesses close within the first year. But so that we don't jump the gun, I just wanted to start from the beginning.
I can see how that statistic can be very real, because it is your first year or two in business that kind of determines where you're going to go. It's your first 10 years in business that determines whether you're going to be a successful business or not.
Okay, so these statistics are real to you.
Yeah, they are. And I more than understand why that is the case. I would say the first year is more about just confidence, because you're never going to succeed the way you dream to in the first year. So some people will give up because they're expecting that overnight success. So the first year is pretty crucial, just where that's concerned, because you're not, I don't care what business you're in, you're not going to reach your peak within the first year.
So everything that you've learned about business, how did that come about? Where were you? First of all, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Yonkers, New York. I was raised in Yonkers until about the age of 13. And then I moved to Yorktown Heights, New York, upstate a little bit more, different environment, different education, totally. Um, but mostly I could say I grew up in Yonkers. I grew up, in the hood, around the hood. And moving to Yorktown was definitely a culture shock. But everything you go through, everything you do is going to help mold you into the person that you are. So I have to say that both Yonkers and Yorktown probably had an equal amount of influence on my life.
Okay. So take everybody, for anybody that's never been, take everybody back to the Yonkers that you grew up in.
Oh, well, the Yonkers I grew up in was back when it was really wild. Everybody was either on drugs or selling drugs. Um, Kids I went to school with, most of them didn't even go to class. If they went to school, they hung out around the school in the hallways. Um, it just was a very different time. There was a lot of high school dropout, a lot of junior high school dropout, and a lot of our people were addicted to drugs. Um, you know, you just were either on one side of the fence or the other. There wasn't a lot for us to look at and emulate in a positive way. So coming out of that and then moving to Yorktown, um, where things were slightly different. And don't get me wrong, in every community there are drug problems. These issues exist in every community. It's just in our community, it's kind of more out in the open, um, and even society puts more of a light on what we do. So it's not that it wasn't happening in those communities. It's just, a little bit more hidden. Um, so, that's still coming from that environment gave me a little bit of an upper hand, even in a place like Yorktown, because I've seen a lot more. I know a lot more of what the real world looks like. So that did help me along the way.
So, in contrasting, what are the major differences that you found between Yorktown and Yonkers?
Just most of the students there were a little bit more serious about school, and about their education and where they were going. You know, they had parents that were, uh, steering them in certain directions. Whereas in Yonkers, it seemed like the kids didn't have a lot of direction to reach their goals. Um, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes I say fear. It takes some level of fear. Your parents instill a certain level of fear and discipline in you. So even when you don't want to do it, you continue to do it, um, to live up to their standards and not to disappoint them. So I think the difference between those two environments is that more so in the Yorktown environment, there were parents, there was a background of success, a background of college, a background of a high school diploma, um, that pushed those kids in that direction because that was more of their norm. Whereas in the Yonkers setting, a lot of those parents didn't have that background. So they didn't steer their kids in that direction, because they didn't have that reference frame to come from.
Makes sense. I understand. So, was Yorktown, the school that you went to in Yorktown, was it predominantly white or mixed?
Yeah, I was the only black person in my class. When I graduated, I was the only black graduate.
You serious? Out of a class of how many?
Roughly maybe 60.
And you were the only black student, black person.
Yeah, I could show you me standing on the stage, the only black one. And I graduated a year early, so I was 16 when I graduated. And it was an experience. It was an experience. It really shaped who I am. So a lot of people say, "Oh, well, how could I do what you did? And I literally say you would have to die and be reborn me, because those experiences made me who I am.
So did you have any insecurities at all going into a all white school or predominantly white school?
I had a lot of insecurities, but coming from Yonkers, I was tough. You know, I knew how to stand up for myself. I wasn't shy about standing up for myself. Um, so a lot of times in those environments, you have to, if you're not confident, you have to be, what's the word for it? Um, Not confrontational, but you have to know how to handle yourself in confrontation. You're going to have issues. If you're the only black person anywhere, you're going to have an issue at some point, right? So, you know,
Agreed.
I did have my issues, um, but I knew how to stand up for myself. Um, I had a mother that wasn't shy. I always knew I could call on her if I had an issue. Um, but that was one of the things that I realized, that, and even coming from that school, it furthered my confidence, furthered how I knew how to deal with any race. I could have a conversation with any race. And that I noticed that a lot of black people cannot do. They feel like they cannot be themselves when they're talking to someone outside of their race. They have to become something else. And I just don't, you know, from coming from there, I had friends in that school. You know, I got to know people of different races, became friends with those people. So I see them on the same level. Whereas I think a lot of black people tend to put people of other races on a higher level than themselves.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. Agreed. That is personally, I think that's a vestige of the subjugation and the propagation of the narratives that we're looking to dispel. Because history says, if you went just according to the history that we're told and taught, that history says that we are inferior to white people. And you know, it's I can imagine if you go through the school system, it's easy to come out with feelings of inferiority.
Right. And white people, they get offended when you don't feel inferior. It's kind of like they won't say it, but you can see it all in them, like, who does she think she is? She thinks she's on my level. Um, and I've kind of learned to say, yeah, I'm on your level, without saying, yeah, I'm on your level. You know, um, and it kind of, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you have a conversation with someone and you kind of check them in the conversation without checking them. And they kind of learn to respect you in that conversation without you having to ask for that respect. You could start off one way in a conversation, and you can see the shift in the conversation, the shift in what the person thinks about you, um, the shift in what you think about that person you're talking to. I've witnessed it so many times, because no matter what race you are, no matter what background you come from, we both face, we all face the same ending, correct? Like, we all get older, we all get sick, we all end up dying. So when you're, as myself, talking to someone of any race about that, about their health, about end of life care, um, it seems to overpower any of those preconceptions you may have, because I have the knowledge that can help you in the situation you're in today. So if you if you're knowledgeable about whatever it is you're doing, your respect comes through that knowledge.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and valid point. I remember I used to pitch stock over the phone when I first got in the stock game, and the number one rule is don't get caught being black. So you would, you like, Bill, how are you, my friend? Like, you would do everything
Exactly.
to not to not get
Exactly.
caught being black. And I ended up working at this other spot, but my manager was black, and so he would laugh at me because he's like, "Yeah, how long you think you're gonna do this? Like, these people could see you. How long do you think you could keep this up?" And what he said was, "Yeah, and it stayed with me forever." He was saying, people by and large won't care about your color if you're good at what you do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Granted, there are some that don't care how nice you are. They just,
Yeah.
how good you are, they
Mm-hmm.
can't get over your being black. But for the most part, people are looking for competent professionals.
Right.
And
Exactly.
in a lot of instances, people will know that when you're black, you've had to overcome certain other obstacles, so you're probably even better.
Exactly. I have to tell you, I've learned through talking to people on the phone. Um, I've learned that if they tell me no, and it's a white person, I can hang up and call back. And if I get a black person, I get a yes. I've learned that through the bank system. Wells Fargo taught me that. Because Wells Fargo has this thing where if you make a deposit where it's over a certain amount, they put a hold on it. But you can call and you can speak to the hold department and they can call the bank of the issuer of that check and they can get clearance. They can verify the funds are there and they can clear your check. So I called one time, I spoke with a man and he said, he was obviously white, and he said, "Hold on, I'm going to check on this." And he put me on hold maybe like 20 minutes. And he came back and he said, "Oh no, they said they don't verify checks from that bank." And I said, that's strange because they just did it last week. So, no, they don't verify checks from that bank. I hung up. I called back. I got what sounded like my grandmother on the other end. And instantly I said, "I'm going to get what I need right now." And I spoke to her just like I'm talking to you. She said, "Hold on, baby." And she put, I kid you not, she came back 5 minutes later and said, "Your funds are clear. You're good to go." So this is the world we live in. You have to understand what you can do within those realms and make it work for you. You can hear when somebody, they know your race, and no matter what you say or do, they're not going to give you what you need. And this is the world we live in, as unfair as it may seem. But when you come up against a black person on the phone or customer service, do you go that extra mile like my grandmother did on the other side of the phone? So you can complain about it all you want, but if you're not doing that extra mile for your people, then you're part of the problem. There's a solution for all of this. We have to stand together. We have to support each other. We have to be in business. We have to start our own businesses and do our own thing so that we can build up our community.
So a lot of the wisdom that you espouse in terms of business and life in general, I would imagine a lot of it came from how you were raised or brought up. What was your household like growing up?
My mother was a nurse. Um, no nonsense mom, like we all had, you know, whip your butt when you're wrong, but she was very supportive um, when you were doing the right thing. So I don't think that there was anything different about my household, much more than the average family. I would say this: my mother was always an entrepreneur. When none of my family owned houses, she made sure she went out and owned a house. She started her home care agency way back then. She never really did it big as I did it, but the seed was planted. I already knew that that was a possibility of something you could do. Um, so I would say my household was a supportive household. My father was an electrician. He didn't live in my household, but he was supportive as well. They always uh, were rewarded good grades. Um, so, we strived for honor roll because we would get money per each A or each B.
One thing I've also learned or experienced is that rejection has a tendency to kind of hold people back. How do you overcome, or how have you managed to overcome rejection?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with rejection is having the realistic expectations. So you can't expect to close every deal. You can't expect to get every customer to subscribe to your service. So I would say you have to put a realistic number in your mind. Um, one out of every five attempts, or even if you get two out of every five attempts, then you're doing great. But you have to have that realistic expectation going in so that you don't get discouraged off of the first no. You got at least three, four more no's to go before you can even expect a yes. So if you do get a yes off of the first call or the first attempt, then you know that you'll be grateful and know that you're just lucky you got that, and maybe you expect the next four to be no's. But set your expectations at a realistic rate. One out of five, two out of five. Um, and if you get to 10 and you got 10 no's, then maybe you should start thinking about doing something else.
And another thing that I've experienced, like especially with telephone sales, is that if you start out with like one out of every, let's just say 15 people you call, 1 out of 15 you get. The thing is, as you get better and spend more time on the phone, and as you get better, that number is going to decrease. And now you're going to get 1 out of 12, 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8. But it all revolves around perseverance and resilience.
And give yourself
Right.
a chance to get better. You're not going to be great right out of the box because you learn a lot with each conversation, with each attempt. You learn a lot. So give yourself a chance to have that growth. Every failure is a lesson. And if you think about it like that, you'll welcome the failures.
So I think sometimes people think when they see success stories, the assumption is they came from money.
Yeah, or heavy influence. We all think that we need nepotism to get anywhere. We need somebody to put us on. Um, I just noticed that about the black community as a whole. Like nobody really sees the vision from the ground up. They want to jump on somebody else's vision, or they want you to, if you've done something, fix me is what they want you to do. Okay, well you did it for yourself. Now, fix me, because they don't feel like they have it within themselves to go from the beginning to take something uh, to reach a higher plateau with something. It feels like somebody got to put me on or give me something in order for me to make it there.
So would you say you grew up, just from a financial standpoint, would you say you grew up rich, middle class, poor?
I would say when I was younger, I thought I was middle class. Now that I'm older and I actually have my own money, I was
Mm.
poor.
So in terms of learning about money, that's something you did in time.
Yeah, because I mean, I realized black people as a whole, they haven't seen a lot of money. Not many of us come from money because basically that's why we're poor, is because we don't have uh, our forefathers able to hand their wealth down. There was no wealth to hand down. So a lot of Black people they don't imagine the amount of money that other races have or have access to. Um, so a lot of money to them is very different than a lot of money to people who actually have money. So if as I've become more wealthy, as I've been successful, and I have access to more money than I've ever seen before or thought I would see, is the more I understand how much the average Black person has nothing. We are living paycheck to paycheck. We have no savings. We have no investments. We have literally no property that we own outright. We're paying payments on our cars. We're paying rent.
Blush.
Sorry. We're paying mortgage. Um, so we don't see ourselves as rich. We really don't see ourselves as poor because we don't know what rich is. So if we get a better job, we're better off than we were making minimum wage. We still don't see money as it is. Um, a lot of us will never see $10,000 in our savings accounts, and most of us, wealthy people, if they saw $10,000, only $10,000 in their bank account, they kill themselves. So that's a stark difference. You have a group of people who will never see $10,000 in their account, and a group of people who, if they saw $10,000 in their account, they would panic because they're so used to having so much more of a cushion. I've seen it with us with many of our, if they win the lotto or if they come upon money, like they have a lawsuit and they get like $100,000. It's gone before, you know, because that 100,000 in their account is like, whoa. But when you start to spend it and you see 100,000 is not whoa in this world of what you're looking at, when you're looking at rich people spending money and, and you think if I had $100,000, I could do that. No, you couldn't. They've got millions. They've got millions and they did nothing more than inherit what was given to them and was not given to us. But we see that and we go, oh, they're amazing. They're brilliant. They must be smart. No, their forefathers had opportunities that we did not have.
So now, and this is jumping the gun, but how do we reconcile that, or can that be reconciled?
Right. It can be. Um, I've reconciled it for my family. Um, my family will now inherit wealth. My kids will inherit wealth. So I'm only one person out of many. But if we can change that narrative for more than just myself, then we change it generational.
So how did you get to where you are now mentally? Because obviously before any money exists, before the house, before any money, it has to exist in your mind. So in your mind, would you say, like, just growing up, would you say you were in exceptionally intelligent or a good student? What about you growing up got you here?
Um, I was not a brilliant student, and actually, once I got to Yorktown High School, is when I discovered that I wasn't brilliant. I was not brilliant. I was not inherently intelligent. I had to strive to keep my grades up because it was a whole different teaching system. I realized a lot of things then. I realized that in the community in Yonkers, um, they were being taught totally different than a Yorktown school. So there's no way someone coming from that school district could have the same intelligence as someone coming from a Yorktown school district. It just wouldn't happen. So already, you see, already the cards are stacked against you. You just were born, you turned 5, and you started kindergarten, and already the odds are stacked against you because the education you're going to receive is not the same as the education of your white counterparts. So already it's stacked against you. So I don't feel like my education made me who I am. And I don't feel like because you're in a Yonkers school district and your education is not the same, I don't feel like that's going to prevent you from being an entrepreneur, opening your own business, pursuing a career. Um, I just think it's going to prevent you from having the confidence that those students have. That's the thing that separates the two. It's not really skill or intelligence. It's confidence. And I mean, you know this from anything you do. If you go to take a test that you have not studied for, how much confidence do you have going in to take that test? Whereas if you studied and you have all this knowledge behind you, then your confidence level increases. You go in and you're ready to take that test. You're confident that you can pass that test because you have that information behind you. So that's what I mean by confidence. It's not level of intelligence, it's level of confidence, but that level of confidence comes from the information that you have behind you.
Well put.
So I was confident as a nurse because I was a nurse for 30 years before I started my own business. So I had that confidence of the information that I had. It really wasn't education based, it was more experience based.
So where did the idea of establishing the business come from? How did that? So actually, before I get to that, you were successful in business before you got a degree. What made you get a degree after you had already made it?
Right. So I was a nurse, I was an LPN for most of my career. Um, I went to RN school. It was a little difficult having 4 children and a husband and working full time to get it to fast track that. So it was taking a little bit of time. But I was a nurse already, so I was working, I was providing for myself and for my family. So it wasn't really a rush to become an RN, even though it would have increased my salary. You know, what you're doing at the moment and the bills you have to pay at that moment take precedent. Um, so I didn't finish my degree, but I did start my business basically because I needed more money. I needed to pay my bills. I was working um, too many hours. I was tired. I wasn't seeing my children enough. So, out of that pure frustration, and I had a lot of encouragement to start my own business because my business started out of helping people already without asking for money. I would help you find a job, I would help uh, someone find a caregiver just because I was in that world and I had a heart to help. So a lot of people said, you know, you should do this. You should be getting paid for this, what you do for people for free. And that's how the business began and the business was formed. So it had nothing to do with me being an RN. I had enough skill as an LPN to start the business. But I did continue and I did get my RN because I like to finish what I start. But having the RN had no impact on my business, besides the fact of more credentials behind my name.
So given the business statistics that we spoke about, how many go out of business after 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. So you couple that with the fact that I believe roughly, I think I read somewhere around 11.4% of all nurses were black. So given the nursing statistics and the business statistics, what made you think that you'd be successful in your own nursing business?
Um, Partially because I just didn't like the way nursing was going. Um, but prior to all this COVID, nurses weren't being paid a lot of money. They worked very hard. Often we worked short. Um, and I would give a different type of care in the facility. So I really cared. So I would go in the room and I would come out of the room and everybody's like, oh, you're in there too long. You're being too nice. You're doing too much. And I just felt like someone should be doing a good job as a nurse. Someone should be giving their all. Um, so I decided that that's the type of business I was going to have. It was going to be a pure service driven business. I was going to give that good service that I thought was lacking in the industry, so much. I was going to expect that good service from anyone who worked for me. I was going to train toward that good service behavior. And that's how I was going to change what I was seeing in nursing, that I didn't like.
So were you ever intimidated by the statistics that said, statistically, things said you had a better chance of failing than succeeding? What were your thoughts on those statistics?
It just made me work harder. You know, in working in nurses, most of the LPNs were black, most of the RNs were white, and that was just because of the way the school system was set up. Um, that they had trade schools for the LPNs, but you had to go to college to be an RN. So just the way it was set up, um, they wanted to keep black people in a certain part of nursing. You either an LPN or a CNA. So that angered me when I was in, um, working in the field, because I didn't see a lot of people like me in those higher positions. So that's what made me complete my RN. That's what made me go for my RN, just because I didn't see a lot of people like me. And that's what made me help a lot of other black nurses go for their RN. Once I knew what path to take, I shared. Um, I wanted to see more people appear with me as an RN.
So what is it about you? Was it the industry that you knew you could be successful in, or is it just a mentality that you have that regardless as to what I touch, I'm going to be successful?
It was a little of both. So I pretty much, I told you, I mastered nursing. Like there's nothing in nursing that I haven't seen or done. So I felt like I mastered it in a way, um, that I could go on my own and really, make a difference. And as a young nurse, that was my goal, was to make a difference in nursing. I worked for agencies most of my career. Mostly agencies take half of a nurse's money. So I figured out how to cut the agency out of nursing, build the Department of Health directly, and still be a nurse working in people's homes, but just there was no middleman. So I was always doing things like that, figuring out, how to make things better for myself, put myself in a better situation, figuring out how to stop things that I thought were not fair. I didn't think it was fair, that the agency was taking half of the nurse's pay. So when I opened my own agency, I didn't do those same practices. I don't take half of what they get. I take less than half. And when we get bumps, I still make sure I'm getting less than half because I just didn't feel like that whole dynamic of getting half of what somebody who's out there actually doing the work was getting. I didn't feel like that was fair. Although I have expenses, of course, I just didn't feel like that was fair. So my model of an agency was different. And I've been able to succeed because I pay higher wages than the other agencies and I charge less. I figured out that there's a middle point there where that middle place is where I'm going to win. So in any business, you got to find your niche. You got to find, okay, if you want to open up a barbershop, well, there's 5 barbershops in that same area. What's going to make you stand out? Whether it be your prices are less than them or your service is that much more better. I worked in both of those. I had to stand out. I was a small guy going against a bunch of large agencies in this industry. So what was going to make me stand out? My service had to be A1. And everybody respects the almighty dollar. So if I can save you a buck, you're going to give me a try at least, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've read that. Actually, one of my favorite quotes is like to succeed in business, you either have to be first, best, or different. So it sounds like you've captured the best and different.
Exactly. Exactly. And we give, what we do is so totally different from what other agencies do. Just from my background of working with agencies, I realized that a lot of the agencies are run by people that are not medical
To
people,
business people.
they're business people. So this industry requires medical people to talk to someone. You want to talk to someone who can give you good advice, who has a certain level of knowledge to help you. Um, and that just wasn't there in the agency part of the medical field. You were talking to business people, salespeople, and I just brought a change to that. I'm a nurse. I can speak to whatever your issue is, whatever your health issue is. I can speak to that, and if I can't help you with my service, I can help you with my experience of just helping you. There's a lot of people who couldn't afford my services where I just gave them guidance on what to do, where to go to get those services. I didn't turn them away. And in turn, they referred someone that could afford my services. So by going that extra mile, I was able to grow my business because even people that weren't my clients, I was willing to help them. And in turn, they were willing to send me business.
So, what is from your perspective and your experience, what is the explanation why there are so few black nurses, relatively speaking?
Just because they have misconceptions about what it takes to be a nurse. I've told a lot of people about the program that I went to nursing, which was at BOCES, which was literally a 9-month program from September to June, full time, and you came out and you were a nurse, and you were they their training is one of the best training programs I've seen. So simply by me telling someone about that program, I've had a lot of people who have gone and done it. Whereas if no one ever shares these things with you, and let me take that back, because you are responsible for yourself as well. So you have to be willing to seek that information. You have to be willing to research what it takes to be a nurse. Um, but it is a lack of guidance in our community, a lack of each one teach one. Everyone help each other. So if I became a nurse and I have the mentality that a lot of us black people do, um, I'm not going to tell you how to do what I did. You know what I'm saying? I need to keep somebody
Hmm.
down here because that's just how we're built. We're up if somebody else is down. And that's the mentality that we need to change. You need to realize that you're up when when everybody's up with you. That's when you're really up, because that's when you can stay up. You have a support system that's going to keep you up. I i couldn't fail right now if I wanted to. I got too many people working with me that are going to say you can't fail because I need you to stay where I am. So when you build that support system, it is just that. It's a support system. It's supporting you and your business.
So what are the that start from the like the beginning, even in the home? What are the barriers to entry for black nurses? What are some of the things that you would not have to go through if you were not black trying to be a nurse?
First of all, the financial aspect of it. Um, if you're trying to enter into college, and these days, listen, they've made it easier for us as black people to go to college, and you have to ask yourself why. Why now is it so easier for us to go to school? Because they want to lead you down a path uh, of confusion. Okay, so we talked about this before, you and I, about the difference between having a trade and going to college. And, you know, we have preconceptions of you go to high school, you got to go to college. Um, and then that just seems like so much for us. And not everybody's built for college. Let's say that as well. So the barriers that keep us here and keep them there is number one, knowledge. Not lack of knowledge of how to do something, how to get to that path of being a nurse. So we may think college is the only way, and it's not. So that's a barrier we're going to put in front of ourselves because college seems like too much of a far reach. And now they've made it easier for us to go to college, but they still have not given us the pathway and the background knowledge because our school systems have not um, have not changed. So that same thing I told you about going to a Yonkers school district was different from going to a Yorktown school district. So in Yorktown school district, they talk to you about your next step, your path, how to reach that goal. Whereas in the Yonkers school district, your goal was to graduate,
Uh,
and that's as far as the guidance went. The guidance didn't really go beyond the school. And if you don't have the family background of success to also tell you the steps, to take to get to where you're trying to go, um, then you're kind of lost. You don't have the school that's telling you the steps to take. You don't have the family background that's telling you the steps to take. So that's one barrier right there. Information and guidance. Now, the next barrier is um, financially is I may have to go straight to work out of high school. I may not have the opportunity if I'm here as a black person and I don't have the ancestral wealth that they have over here. So I may not be able to go to school full time, um, give it the attention that it needs to become a nurse, to become a professional. That's barrier number two. Um, Three, the barriers that we put on ourselves, our, our mental barriers, um, things like having children at a young age. Those are other barriers that we put on ourselves, that's going to prevent us from being able to do maybe what our white counterparts are able to do. So there are several barriers, and it's just the way you look at things. Either you allow it to be a barrier or you overcome that barrier, because I had all of those barriers. I had all of those barriers. Um, I came out of high school. I went to college, yes, but I had to work. I didn't have a family that could just pay for everything. I had to work and take care of myself. By the time I was 23, I had a child. Barrier number two, I had to work. I had to take care of that child. I had to fit in time for school. Um, so I had those very same barriers. So you're asking, in a nutshell, why was I able to overcome those barriers? And I would just say the answer to that is that you have that other part of it, that other piece of having Yorktown High School, of seeing the pathway. I had a guidance counselor who set me down and told me the pathway to become a doctor, which is what I originally wanted to become. So I had a vision of a pathway and how to get there. And that's where it starts. And we don't have that. And we need more people like myself in the community telling our people how to get where that pathway lies and how they too can be on that pathway, even with those barriers.
So speaking of barriers, and even with those barriers, so you've been in business 10 years or more, which statistically 65% of all new businesses go out of businesses within 10 years. What did you do different than the 65%?
So for me, it's a little easier because I'm in health field. So in healthcare, because the first thing is got to be a need for what you're trying to do. So for me, it was a little easier because healthcare, everybody needs healthcare. So it wasn't hard to get into the business. How did I sustain? Good service is number one. Good service. You have to think about yourself. What do I want? What kind of service do I want to see and receive? And then you have to, in turn, give that service. That is strictly the only reason I'm where I am. The service we give is outstanding.
So it sounds like passion has a lot to do with it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to love what you do. You have to be good at what you do. You have to have a good background, um, to be able to guide people in, in your industry and whatever your industry is. So if I was in the clothing industry, I would have to be able to, I would have to know clothing. I would have to know materials. Uh, is that made of cotton? Is it rayon? You know, I would have to know my stuff. So the same thing with nursing. What made me good in this field is because I worked as a nurse and I know my stuff. So in any field, you first have to be proficient in what you're trying to do, and you have to give good service, and you have to be good to people. Really, you have to build relationships. Um, I have to build relationships in every aspect of this business. I'll tell you a story. I had to hire a trainer um, to teach a class. And I was talking to that trainer earlier, and as the trainer said to me, I could tell that this person was a black person just, in conversating with them on the phone. And what I couldn't tell was this person was part of the LBG. I get the letters mixed up. I'm sorry, community. And so The person sounded like a female on the phone, and I referred to her they as a her, and they corrected me and said no, refer to me as a him. So to make a long story short, it kind of seemed like we got off to a rocky start because of that. And I noticed that in the conversation. So as I quickly changed my tone, and by the time we finished the conversation, we were discussing how long we were going to be in a business relationship. We were both saying, oh, we're going to be in a business relationship for a long time, because you have to realize you're dealing with people. So you have to be willing to have a relationship with the people that you're dealing with, more outside of what the business you're talking about. I got to respect you. I have to know you. I have to learn you. I have to do all of that in a conversation. And now I got a trainer in my pocket that's ready to go.
Every story you tell just kind of makes me ask, prompts more and more questions. So the things that you've learned, so you hear all the time about college or business school being necessary for business. You've already proved that wrong, but I'll ask you anyway. Is it necessary to go to college or business school to run a successful business?
No, you have to know how to speak to people. You have to have a relationship with people. No business school, no college is going to teach you that. So in that conversation with that person, I could have easily lost what I was trying to get. So the skill comes um, in communication. It didn't come in from school or my education. It came from me being a real person, talking to a real person, and adjusting, being able to adjust my conversation according to who I'm talking to. We have to be multiple people in this world, Brian. So I think whereas we as Black people think that we're at a disadvantage, I think we're at an
Beautiful.
advantage because we know how to be water. Water flows through, just flows, right? So I've seen a lot of Black people who know how to be water. So they know how to conversate with a white person. They know how to conversate with a Spanish person. They know how to conversate with a street person. They know how to conversate with a professional person, all because we have to in order to survive in our environment. So we have the upper hand because you have a lot of white people who don't know how to talk to a Black person, don't know how to talk to a Spanish person, has no street reference anywhere in their lives. To me, that's a
Definitely. I
disadvantage.
wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree.
You know, I've gone to other countries, and my my street smarts, my um, Yorktown smarts, my Yonkers smarts, all come into play when I'm in that other country, and you're dealing with someone who's may not even speak your language, but there's a language of experience. I don't know if you understand what I mean by that. There's a language of experience that speaks volumes. So when I go on vacation, um, and I'm dealing with a service worker in a hotel that doesn't speak English, I know enough to give that person that a certain respect. I go out of my way and give them a certain respect because there's a language, an unspoken language that we know. So if I give them a tip, I put it in their hand, I give them eye contact. We're speaking an unspoken language. And I think we as Black people have the upper hand where that's concerned. When I see a Dominican and, I speak their language the New York way, and I give them the look. It's just a language. It's an unspoken language that we as Black people have. And when we are even in other countries and people of color see us, that language is spoken without saying a word. So that's the upper hand you have that most white people don't.
Yeah, no, like every black person knows what you see that and you.
Yes. There you go. Exactly. Exactly. So, that's an upper hand that you have to learn to use.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. It's really, I think one thing I've learned, and I've been in lots of different industries. The one thing that's always in common, that they all have in common, is people, and it's really like every business you're in. It doesn't matter what business you're in the people business.
You're in the people business. And that's why I'm successful. That's it in a nutshell.
So let me ask you this, and this might actually even be controversial as far as conventional wisdom is concerned, but so let's just say there's a 17, 18-year-old graduating from high school. They have a great idea for a business. They have the passion. They're going back and forth in their minds between starting a business and going to college. How do you advise that person?
Start a business. Start a business. Um, if college is something that you want just as a personal goal, um, go to college. Um, and you can go to college while you're running a business. But if you're proficient in something enough to even think of doing that as a business, then that should be where your mindset is. If you keep in mind that as long as you work for someone else, you will never be wealthy. If you keep that in the forefront of your mind, then working for someone else will not ever be your goal. That's never the goal I have for my kids.
So do you think that with the right, I don't know, idea, do you think anyone can run a business?
I don't. I think that there are bosses and there are workers. I truly believe that. I don't think that anybody can do anything. Um, and I want to choose my words carefully because I believe anybody can do anything, but I don't believe everybody is meant to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So I can't go to someone and say, hey, you can do exactly what I did. You can't do exactly what I did. You know what I'm saying? It's a success is personal.
Mm.
That's what I'm trying to say. Success is personal. You can't look at somebody else and say, I'm just going to do exactly what they did and I'm going to be successful. You're not. You could be, but that's not the way you go into something. Success is very personal. You're going to be successful at what you're good at. So that's what I meant to say. Everybody can't do every what somebody else is doing, but everybody can be successful in what they're good at. Everybody can start a business. Anybody can start a business. Um, One of the nurses that works for me, her daughter makes fried Oreos, and she brings them to school. She comes home with stacks of money. Does that mean that she should go out and open a whole fried Oreo business?
So that was my next question is we tend to, because people who do things well, the essence of them doing it well is that they make it look easy. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people that are like, well, I do such and such well. Like I designed this sneaker. Should I go into, or people will be like, yeah, no, that sneaker or whatever you designed is dope. you should go into business. What do people in that situation need to consider before actually jumping into business?
Yeah, like not every talent you do should be the business that you're gonna do. Like I can corn braid hair, I can sing, I can write music, I can cook very well. But is that what what's gonna bring me, what's gonna bring me success? Is that so that's why I said it's very personal. Because someone who braids hair and is really good at it, and they can make a successful business out of that. So, what makes it different for me? It's your path, it's what you're proficient in, it's what you enjoy doing. It has to be something you enjoy doing. You have to be passionate about it. Um, you can't go into business for yourself with something you don't enjoy because you're in business for yourself. So there's nobody there that's going to make you do it. So if you don't enjoy doing it, are you going to do it? So if there's nobody there saying, Brian, you get over there, your podcast is starting right now and it's time to go. And if you don't like doing this and nobody was there telling you, we're on right now, do this, would you do it?
Yeah.
How often would you do it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there are challenges that, in you running a business, there are challenges that are and hurdles that you would have to overcome that if you were not passionate about it, it would just be way too easy to quit
It
if you
would
were
be.
not passionate about what you were doing.
It's very easy to quit. And in the first year, that's why most businesses don't make it through the first year because sometimes things sound really good, but when you go to put it into effect, it's different than the way you imagined that it would be. If you're trying to be an overnight success at anything, it will never happen. It will never happen without hard work, without really um, putting the effort in. I had times in the beginning of doing this where I wanted to pull my hair out because, like my husband says, you build it, they will come. And you may not think they will, but they will. And when they start coming, you got to be
Do
ready.
you
You got to be.
you think that's always the case though? Like if you build it, they'll
I,
come?
I do. I do. I think that people are um, curious enough to look into whatever you have, and you only got one chance to wow them. But if you build it, they will come. If there's a need for it. See, that's the other thing. Some people just, like I used to live in Mount Vernon, and I used to look around and I used to say, there was a dollar store on every corner. It would be one here, there, there. And I used to say to myself, if I was going to open a dollar store, I would never open it over here because there's four of them right here. So all of those are things that you have to consider when you're going into business. Where is the need? What is the need? How are you fulfilling that need? And how do you make it lucrative? It, if you can answer those four questions, then you're on your way.
Great lesson. Great lesson.
Say, I wasn't afraid to fail either because I had a mother that no matter what, I knew, you know, even with the business, I told you the hardest thing in business is making your payroll, paying your people that work for you. But I always knew that if it was the time I couldn't make my payroll, I could call my mother and she was going to loan me some money to make my payroll. So our lack of fear of failure is a little bit different.
So how do you explain the people that might have grown up in the house next door's fear of failure? If that, see, I think it's because failure is embarrassing. Nobody wants to, first of all, you have 100 people, 1,000 people telling you you're not going to be successful anyway. It's not going to work. So for you to try it and then go back, I think I always wonder more, like for me, like I remember I quit. I was working at a spot. I quit and I was like, I'm gonna go be a real estate agent. Like I failed. I did not enjoy it, and I failed. But the thing is, like, I'm 45 years old. I can't very well go back and be like, hey, ma, yeah, and to go back and crawl with your tail between your legs. I personally think that the fear of failure is born from the more embarrassment than anything else. And I think there's a perspective. People look at failure as a bad thing. But one thing that I've come to realize, like, I've watched my father do stuff and it failed. But failure is just a guideline for your success if you keep going.
But did he fail? Because he's built a name for himself. He's got a lot of respect for the tries alone. So is it really a failure? That's what you have to ask yourself. Like, I've had a lot of what some people may think is failures. But later on, I look back and I go, number one, did I learn something from it? Did anybody see the failure? So I'm not, I'm not embarrassed if nobody sees it. And in business, you will have a lot of personal failures. Like, only you know. Only you know you didn't get that contract you was trying to get. Only you know you got the contract and wasn't able to fulfill it and you lost the contract. Only you know that. So it's like, in business, a lot of your failures are not really failures. They're stepping stones onto that success. And a lot of ways you start in business, you're not going to end that way. Like, the business I'm doing right now is totally different from the business I started doing. And it's because of failures and things happening. I'll give you for instance, in home care, I would send an aide to someone's house to take care of them. Okay? When I first started, I knew nothing. I would just say, hey, you need an aide? I got one. I'm going to send it to you. And they would promise to pay me. And that was good enough until they didn't pay me. Right? So then what did I do? Okay, I learned. Now, I need your credit card before I send you my aid. I need this contract signed that says I have the right to charge your credit card for my services. And then now I can send you your aid. That's one learning lesson, right? That changed how the business was going. Then I found out that people do other sneaky things. So now I send you the aid, and now you and the aid want to make a side deal so that you pay a little bit less and she gets paid a little bit more. But all the work that I've done to bring the two situations together, now I lose out. So no, we got to change that contract. Now the contract says, if that happens, I get to charge your card $10,000. You breached our contract. That was a failure. I lost the aid, I lost the client. But guess what? That was the one and only time. I've charged people $10,000 plenty of times and walked away with my $10,000. To the point where I'm like, try it, please. I want you to try it. Because these are learning lessons. I didn't start off knowing any of that. I had to get burned and then learn what you got to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. So that's business in a nutshell.
And that's really what I was trying to get across, was that failure is only failure when you quit. Because you're going to learn something from it that is going to give you directions for success. So speaking of success, in your opinion, are successful people born or made?
I would have to say made. I would have to say made because I've seen so many young people get their passion stolen from them. Um, they start off one way, and life and just experiences turn them into something totally different. So I would have to say they're made.
What is your definition of success? How does entrepreneur Brown Taylor define success?
Success is when you are independently wealthy, when you can take care of yourself, when you have, and you can take care of your family, and you are financially secure. That's when you know you are successful. Because a lot of people can be in business for themselves, sure. But if you don't have any money to show for it, then you're very well not successful. That's what success is. It's finances. So I have a lot of people who they're in business in their minds. Like, I'm in business, I do this, I do that, I'm da 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 da. Are you financially secure? No. Then you need to go to a different business. That's what it boils down to.
That so no, the one thing I do think I, th- I think that success is subjective. So like for some people for some people some people define success as money, some people define success as like, can you be successful and not be wealthy? Boom, that was the question.
No. No. If I work 10 years doing all of this and I'm still paycheck to paycheck scrimping, I'm not successful.
But what if I love the game so much? What if I just love the game?
Then you're happy, but you're not successful.
Touche. All right. I get it. Good point. So another question. Do you think, and you touched on it earlier, do you think black people are being held back, holding themselves back, or both?
Holding themselves back. Holding themselves back. Nobody can hold you back. Even if they don't like you, they can't stand you, they can't stop you from doing what you want to do. And people can. I used to hate when people, oh, the white man is the white man keeping us down, holding us down. I don't see it. I really don't see it. I am richer and more successful than 90% of the white people I know. They can't teach me shit. Okay? Nor can they take anything from me.
So what are your thoughts on the education system that you described, where some come out and I would attest to the fact that, but looking back, you go through public school, the founding fathers, Thomas Edison, everything of success is white. So what do you think? Do you think that that's not something that holds us back?
It does. It's going to mess with your mind as a child. You know, I remember sitting in a classroom with all white people, and I'm the only black person, talking about slavery. And I remember how uncomfortable that was, because the way they teach slavery is they shame the black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, They teach it as if these people were so dumb, they got themselves into slavery, you know? And it's just not a good feeling. But I'll tell you what, in New York is one of the most segregated states anywhere. People don't even realize that. But I lived in New York and I went to school in different areas and I put my kids in school in different areas. They're very prejudiced. I've seen it with my own children. But what are you going to do? I mean, like, how are you going to let that affect your life? Like, you can either say, okay, these people treat me this way, and I'm going to feel bad about myself, and I'm going to not rise to the occasion because no one expects me to, right? Nothing is going to change with that mentality. Like nothing is going to change. I truly believe you have to be the change you want to see. So you have to step out there and prove them wrong if they think you can't make it. If they think you're less than, you have to prove them wrong. So, I mean, I do feel like it affects us. I do. I don't know what the answer is on how to change that. Only that you are the master of your household, so you have to change that within your household. Like I know my kids, um, they're very confident. They're always going to be confident, and they're going to be able to step out into this world being confident just from the way we speak in our household. Like you're never going to hear me say Johnny is better than you. You know what I'm saying? So that comes a lot, and our elders had it worse than us. So mentally, they were a lot more deprived than we are. Like, black people now are a little more spunky. I see a lot of my people being a lot more confident, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough. You know, I'm gonna tell you one thing I don't like. I, as being a black business owner, I don't like the way my own people. Um, I'm not gonna say cower. Um, in essence, I think they give me too much respect. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see myself as being different or special in that aspect. Like talk to me like you would talk to anybody else. But I think our people think that if it's somebody who did anything, they deserve all this respect because you did something outrageous or something that I can't see myself doing. That bothers me because I know that you could do the same thing. I know not the same thing, but you could do whatever's in your path just as well as I'm doing this over here. And I just don't like the fact that they look at me as being more than.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I think I understand what you're saying. I think that's kind of the way we look up to each other. It's just a sign that people actually do look up to you because there is no, and I appreciate your humility and everything, but yeah, you've just accomplished something really, really great. And the beauty of it and why I thought it was so important to speak to you is that it, like with your level of humility, you are the example that it can be done. It can be done so much that I did it. But I mean, so I just imagine you're going to always have people that kind of look up to you, probably from all races. Do you get that only from black people, or do you get that across the board?
Mostly from black people. I think from white people I get more of surprise, shock, like almost as though they want to say, "You're black and you did this." It's like you read it in people, like they're
Mm-hmm.
surprised, like, "Wait, you own the company?" And then they go like, Like 100% you own this company? Like, yeah, 100%. All me. You know, the question becomes the disrespect. You know, you can see it all in them that they don't feel. Um, First of all, I look young, so they don't think that someone that looks like me is capable of all of that.
So it's a yeah, so it's a thing where your appearance is important.
It is. It really is.
So
You'd be surprised. And see, I, I'm so aware of my surroundings that the first person I hired to work with me was another white female. Because I said, if that's what they wanted to look like, I'm going to send her up in there, and that's what it's going to look like. And then I realized she don't have the sauce.
when did you realize that?
I realized that right away. Like we would go into a meeting, and I just have to start taking it over because you don't have the sauce. Like you got the complexion, but I got the sauce. And then you start to realize they don't really care about. They care about the sauce.
Right, right, right. Definitely, for sure. For sure. So, another thing you mentioned that I was intrigued by was your emphasis or how important you feel it is to increase the black presence in the healthcare or nursing industry and in entrepreneurialism. Why is that so important to you?
It's important because I know um, the advantages being a nurse can give your family. Um, and I just feel like there's a lot of us who would love to be nurses. Like people tell me all the time they would love to be a nurse, but they just don't see the pathway to it. Um, and one of the teachers that teaches trains my employees is also a nursing teacher at Mercy College. So she also encourages. She's got two of my people now going to nursing school. So she encourages them as well. And she's Hispanic. She's the head of the Hispanic Nurses Association here in New York. Um, so that's one of her goals is to bring more of the Hispanic community into nursing. So by teaching my students, and she tells them, I'm the teacher. I'm at Mercy College. Come, I'll help you get into the program. That's what's needed. That's all
Mm-hmm.
that's needed is for someone in my position or in her position to say, I see that you can do this, and here is the pathway for you to be able to do this.
So that's, and that kind of lends to the next question I wanted to ask you is, so I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, but if the healthcare industry is and the healthcare industry has been working just fine as it has been, why more black healthcare workers? What difference would it make if there were more black healthcare workers? To, in general, what difference would it make?
So I would be interested in what that statistic is as far as percentage ratio of the rest of the healthcare, like CNAs, PCAs, HHAs. I think that number in the black community is far exceeds any other community because that is the lowest level that you can work, make money in the healthcare, the shortest amount of training, and that's considered the lowest level of care. So I just think that those numbers can change. It's not that we don't have, it's just where we are. It's like we're in the healthcare. We're large in the healthcare. But where are we in the healthcare? We're at that bottom level and we're staying at that level. I think that we just need to you know, speak to that level, speak to that community, that they can go further in that medical career. And that's what we've been doing, just with everybody who works for me. I always put it out there. Anybody who wants a career in nursing, who wants to further your education in nursing, we're here to help you and guide you in that. And I think we just need more of that in our community. Um, More people that are willing to share what their pathway was. How did they get to where they are? And I think we can change that. We can change that ratio, because I think that ratio is only in nursing,
Hmm.
um, between RNs and LPNs. But that lower level, I mean, it's got to be just the flip flop of that number.
Yeah, I should have looked that up. You're right. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
So we're in healthcare. We're just at that lower level, and
So,
and we're being overseen by our white counterparts.
so would you encourage? So let's just say someone wants to enter healthcare as a nurse. Would you recommend they start as a CNA or just go straight for a nurse?
Um, if I was talking to someone right now, I would tell them to go to the BOCES, go to apply for the BOCES nursing program. You will get your CNA while you're in nursing school,
So you could work while you're in school.
right? So the first thing you learn are those CNA skills, and then you get your CNA, and then you continue in nursing school. But those first things you have to learn as a nurse are those CNA skills. So I would say, I always say, if you can go for the end goal and get something in the meantime that can uh, take care of you financially, keep your eye on the end goal. What's the quickest way to that end goal? I tell people a lot of times, like, even with the BOCES program, they have different programs with, so you can take a part-time program and extend the time and go in the evening for a few hours. But I always tell people, if you can go full-time in the day, do that. Change whatever has to happen in your life to do that. Because in 9 months, you're a nurse. You're making money. It's all about finances. I'm not going to say life is all about money. That's by far not what I mean. What I mean is that in order for us to take care of ourselves, in order for us to create generational wealth, in order for us to take care of our children, we have to have money. So that has to be the goal. Yeah, I like what I do. Yeah, whatever. Your goal has to be financial security. However, you're going to reach that goal is going to be different for all of us. So, first, you want to do what you love, right? You want to have a passion for what you do. You want to be good at what you're going to do. You got to be like the best at it. Um, and then you want to make sure it's lucrative.
Have you ever gotten to the point in business where you were on the verge of quitting?
Yeah. And not for the reason that you would think. Um, because business was very good and it was overwhelming. I literally thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. My phone never stopped ringing from morning to night. I was so overwhelmed. I just, I didn't know how much longer I could continue that way until I learned the second uh, rule in business to be successful is to learn how to delegate responsibility, how to let go of some responsibility and hire people to do certain jobs. When you're in business and you're self-employed, a lot of people, you start off doing everything yourself. Everything. You are the secretary. You you are everything. You are the business administrator that's getting the business. You are billing. You are payroll. You do everything when you first start in business. And there comes a point where it's going to pile up on you and then you have to hire people have to start replacing yourself in some of those jobs. But I did have my moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
So you had the opposite experience. You wanted to quit because you were too successful.
Basically, yeah. I was too busy. I was like, there's only one of me. I'm gonna
So
die. I remember saying that to my
I'm gonna
husband. I'm
die.
gonna die. Like,
What about the times when adversity never affected you? You saying like you've never thought to yourself, this is not going to work.
I've never thought to myself, I truthfully, honestly, I never thought it would be as big as it is.
Mm.
But I always knew I would make money. I always knew that I would, and that's what you're in it for. Basically, your end goal always has to be financial, no matter what. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I enjoy it. But your end goal always has to be financial. Nobody wants to be in a business where they're not making any money, right? There's Even if you enjoy it, people enjoy singing, but if they're not getting paid for it, they don't want to do it, right? So money has to always be the end goal. So I always knew that I was going to make some money. Did I ever think that I would be staffing almost 40 facilities? Um, no, never did I think that. I never even thought I'd be staffing a facility. I just came in this for home care. How did I get here? I ask myself that every day. But you have to be willing to grow with your business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's powerful. What's your best advice to an entrepreneur that's actually at the point where they want to give up? What do you say to them?
You have to look at your business and look at why you want to give up. Like, what is it? Are you not making enough money? Are you making money but not enough in regard to the time that you have to put in? You really have to look at the reasoning. And if you're not making money, then why are you not making money? And you have to be honest with yourself. You really have to be honest with yourself. Some people are not people. People, how do you say? People.
Yeah, they're not people.
I'm not right. I just happen to be a people person. And I've seen some people run businesses and they have horrible, in nursing we call it bedside manner. Customer service. I would say that is what's going to make you successful. If you're not happy and you're not giving good customer service, you will not be successful. So if you're quitting, if you're feeling like giving up because you're not happy with what you're doing, you're not successful because you're not happy with what you're doing.
So are there people that so what about the person that's like ultra passionate about what they're doing, they really like it, but they just can't get it off the ground? What do you say to
Um, then you have to look at the need for the services that you're giving. Are you in the right community for those services? Do you need to go elsewhere? Um, you have to start looking at the business itself. So if right now there was a time when business had slowed down for me, um, because not that it slowed down, it's just I had an abundance of workers signed up with me, but I didn't have an abundance of work for them. Um, and that was because payroll, the more business you take, the more people you got to pay. You got to have money to pay them while you wait for your money. So I was at the point where I was like, okay, I can't, if I don't take on more business, I'm going to lose a lot of these aides I got because they need full-time work. But if I take on more business, I need more money to pay. So I'm at a crossroads here. What do I do? So at that point, I had to look at my business and say, what can I do? All right, I have to get funding so that I can take on more business, keep these aides that I have, make payroll. I have to get some type of funding from somewhere. So then I start researching and looking and doing that type of thing. So you have to look at your business and you have to ask the why question. Why am I not scaling to where I want to scale right now? And then you have to be willing to make changes, research and make changes. That's what a lot of business people don't do. It's like, if you can't be a one trick pony, that trick doesn't work, you got to go on to the next one. You have to look at why it didn't work and correct it and go again.
So the old adage, never give up, doesn't always apply. Sometimes like I think I read, they said if at first you don't succeed, try and try again, but don't make a damn fool of yourself.
Right. Change it up, though. You have to be realistically look at the situation. Don't just say, oh, I'm just going to try something else. Because if you apply the same strategy to the something else you try, it's going to fail too.
For sure, that's powerful.
You got to change your strategy. And you have to look at your failure and see what in it needs to change.
That's powerful. That's powerful. So, do you what are the, from your perspective and your experience, what are the main ingredients to success in any endeavor?
The main ingredient, I would say, is having a good vision of your pathway. Like, you have to see it before you can do it. You have to be it almost. Like, before I had 30 something facilities, before I was a boss of 200 people, I was a boss of 200 people. You have to see it just like that. Like, you have to become it, and that's what you want to be. And you have to realize there's no rules. There's no book. You could go buy a business book. You'd be wasting your time. There's no rules to this game. It's your business. It runs the way you run it. So, that's my advice. Don't look to be schooled. Take yourself to school. Just do it.
So, what's more important for success, in your opinion? Is it in? So there are obviously other elements, but of them, what's most important to you? Is it intelligence or work ethic? Which one will get you farther?
Work ethic. Work ethic. I have some people who work for me that I would say are not the brightest bulb in but with training, with passion, they are my number one workers. Number one. They may not have even finished high school, but they are my number one workers. Because they listen, they want to learn, they have the heart to learn. The smartest people are the people who want to learn. Nobody was born smart. Nobody woke up and was like the square root of, you wasn't born out the womb like that. You have to have a heart to learn. Like me, I've always wanted to learn. I told you I took a job. I just quit a month ago at an agency just to see the inner workings of another agency.
Did they know you had your own?
Oh yeah, they knew. That's why they hired me.
Oh,
Because they said, if little old you is over there doing that, come over here. First, they wanted to buy my agency, and I said, no, I'm not selling. But I'll come over and work with you. So if little you is over there doing that, I want you to come over here so I can see what you're doing. What I learned was that they weren't doing anything spectacular. They were
they
doing the
didn't have the
same things
sauce
I was
either.
doing and not as well.
Yeah, so it's the sauce again.
It's the
They just didn't
sauces.
have
Hey,
it.
and even with that situation, let me tell you where um, the agency was owned by an Indian family. So one, they're not from here. They don't know the makeup of the community. They can't talk to my people like I can. They can't, they don't have, like people used to say, your phone number's on the bathroom wall somewhere. My husband used to say, "Did you write your phone number on the bathroom wall?" Because my phone does not stop ringing. Why? I'm from here. I know everybody here. Word of mouth is going to get me everything I want. In my community, I am it. So I have an upper hand over them. They could never beat me in my community. And that's what we have to learn. Cater to your own people. Cater to your community. Hire your people. Put them to work. Teach them. Help them. And it's going to turn around and your business is going to flourish because you got the pulse of your community.
So you have over 200 employees. That's just obviously, clearly, really impressive. You have over 200 employees. So you've obviously mastered the art of hiring. So when you're in the interview or in the hiring process, what's a red flag for you for potential employees that this just isn't going to work out? What do you notice where you like, nah?
Um, Complaining. Like if we do training classes and we do orientations, whoever's in that orientation or training class that is complaining about whatever it is, I, I automatically, it's a red flag for me because you're not reading the room. And when you go into, like, we staff for group homes for disabled, you have to know how to read your client. You have to know how to read your room. You have to know what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. That's number one. So if you're in a room and you're in a classroom and I'm the owner of the business and I'm here teaching you something and you're complaining or, you know, or giving me any type of back talk, I already know what I'm up against. It's not that I'm going to write you off at that moment, but I'm going to speak to you, speak to what I see in you. I might even make it an example in the classroom. You know what I'm saying? Because I know my people. And I know that sometimes they need to be educated um, by their people. They need to learn how to read the room. Like, learn there's a place and a time for everything. And stop thinking that just because somebody is black, that they are right with you not performing to the highest of the level. You know, because I get a lot of that too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could play around because you know, she's black like me. And I quickly let them know, no, we're not playing. I didn't get here by playing around. We're serious right now. We can play later.
So what is next for, well, first of all, two-part question. What is next for Miss Nichelle Brown Taylor?
So many things. I would like to open up a spa. Um, I'm in the middle of writing a play, a musical. So many things. Um, I'm still going to be growing my company. You never stop. When you're growing a company, you never stop. There's more facilities out there that need our services, and we're just going to keep going at them um, until I'm the biggest staffing agency in New York.
Okay, so part two of the question is what's next for tailored care, branching off into different avenues in healthcare, expanding where you already are?
Yeah, right now we're going to be expanding into different boroughs. We're going into Connecticut. We're going into more of Queens and Brooklyn, just expanding our brand. Um, that's one thing I learned as well too, is when I first started, I was branching out all over the place. I was in Atlanta, I was in North Carolina, I felt like I could staff anywhere, so I was. What I've learned is it's better to focus on your immediate community or pick a community that you're going to focus on instead of trying to conquer such a wide area. Focus on conquering that one area first. And it's funny because my husband was in the music business and he used to say that all the time to his artists. If your own community ain't behind you, you might as well forget about somebody else's hood being behind you.
So that's actually a great message. A great message for on a number of different levels. So the if you were to do a let's just say if you were to do a 10-second commercial for tailored care, what would you say?
Um, I would say Tailored Care is one of the premier top staffing agencies in the New York area. We pride ourselves on our top tier trainings that we provide to our caregivers and on our excellent number one service. That's what we put first is our customer service and our hands-on approach.
So anyone looking for a that needs health care, home health care, or anyone that's looking for an opportunity or a job in healthcare can come and see you.
Absolutely. If you are looking for quality staffing for your facility, if you are struggling with finding staff, you can look us up on www.tailoryourcare.com or give us a call at 914-346-6087. We will be happy to help you in your facility with finding the right candidates to fit your clientele. If you are in need of home care or even consultation for home care, you can give us a call. We are always here to help.
And we obviously wish you and Tailored Care all the best and continued success in all of your what we all know will be many endeavors. And thank you again for your time and your energy today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sh-
If I can be of any help or, you know, and if anyone needs some advice on opening a business, if you have a idea or a plan that you would like some advice or some help with knowing what the next step would be, feel free to reach out to myself or to Brian and he can get a message to me. But I'm always here to help.
so before we let you go, and I really can't wait for your message to get across to the world. Just because I know you and I know what you have to offer the world. But before we let you go, we actually have what's called the black box segment of the show.
Okay.
So, the black box segment, we ask every guest to make a deposit of some kind of wisdom, advice, or insight which you believe would uplift the black community or some segment of it. So, what wisdom, insight, or advice would you deposit to uplift the black community?
I think just that if anybody else did it, if it's been done before, you can do it. If it, whatever your passion is, whatever business you want to open, whatever you want to do, if it's been done, it can be done again. And if you research and you're serious about what you're doing and you just take that first step, you will be successful.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the founder, president, and CEO of Tailored Care, Miss Nichelle Brown Taylor.
I keep expecting to hear some round of applause.
Now we'll add that in.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is what it is. You know, it is what it is.
Thank you all for tuning in. Please remember, if you also do not believe the false negative images or stereotypes, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I promise you, we're going to make good things happen. Peace. And welcome to the She Didn't Believe You Either segment of the show. So in this segment, we shine a light on Black excellence and success of the past, of individuals who didn't believe the false negative narratives and stereotypes even back then. So today we shine a light on Mary Eliza Mahoney, born in 1845 in Dorchester neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. After working several years as a private duty nurse at Boston's New England Hospital for Women and Children, in 1878, she was admitted to the hospital's nursing program. In 1879, she became the first Black woman to complete the nurses training program and begin working as the first Black licensed nurse in the country. She became one of the first Black members of the American Nurses Association, as well as a member and co-founder of the newly formed National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. She's also credited with being one of the first women to register to vote in Boston following the ratification of the 19th Amendment. She was inducted into the Nursing Hall of Fame in 1976 and the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1993. She died in Boston at the age of 80. We highlight her image to show that Black excellence, success, accomplishment, and achievement is not a new thing. We've been doing this. So a shout out to and gratitude to Mary Eliza Mahoney, because she didn't believe you either. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the We Don't Believe You podcast with your host, Brian McCoy. We hope you feel enlightened and empowered by our show. Please visit our YouTube channel at We Don't Believe You and our socials at We Don't Believe You on Facebook and Nah Don't Believe You on Twitter X. Please subscribe and share our podcast. Peace.